Sometimes the silence hurts more than the truth. You text someone you care about, someone you trusted, someone you thought valued you, and suddenly they vanish. No explanation, no closure, just emptiness where connection used to be. That confusing mix of frustration, embarrassment, and self-doubt can consume your mind. And this is exactly where most people lose themselves, but it's also where a Stoic finds their strength. Before we continue, take a second to like this video and subscribe for more timeless Stoic wisdom that strengthens your mind and restores your power. Number 1. Accept the fact that their silence is an answer. Being ghosted feels personal, but the Stoic lesson begins when you realize it has nothing to do with your worth. People ghost because they avoid difficult conversations, responsibility, or honesty, and those are their weaknesses, not yours. When someone disappears without a word, the Stoic response is not to interpret their silence as rejection of your value, but as proof of their character. Their silence speaks loudly. They're not ready to meet you where you stand. Instead of chasing answers from someone who does not have the courage to speak, turn inward and notice the emotional storm rising within you. You may feel confused, insulted, or disrespected, but none of those emotions come from their action. They come from your interpretation of that action. A Stoic separates the two. You cannot control their disappearance, but you can fully control what you decide it means to you. Once you understand this separation, their silence stops being a personal attack and becomes a simple piece of information. It's feedback about what kind of person they are. It's clarity disguised as rejection. In Stoicism, clarity is always a gift, even when it arrives wrapped in pain. It frees you from illusions and forces you to see reality without filters. Accepting their silence also teaches a powerful emotional discipline, the ability to let things end without begging for closure. In life, you will not always receive explanations. You will not always get the answers you deserve, but you can always choose dignity. You can choose to accept reality as it is, not as you wish it to be. This acceptance frees you from emotional dependence and strengthens your inner core. When you accept their silence as the final message, you reclaim your time, your energy, and your peace. You let their disappearance create space for someone honest. You remove yourself from the prison of wondering and overthinking. And in Stoicism, freedom from unnecessary suffering is one of the greatest victories you can win. Number 2, master your emotional reaction. Being ghosted triggers your ego more than your heart. You feel ignored, overlooked, disrespected. The ego interprets silence as humiliation, and the first instinct is to react, to send another message, to ask what went wrong, to demand answers. But a Stoic understands this impulse is the real enemy, not the person who disappeared. What harms you is not their silence, but your reaction to it. Emotional mastery begins with observation. When the urge to reach out appears, pause. Watch the emotion unfold inside you. Notice the tension, the fear, the confusion. Don't fight it. Don't suppress it. Simply put distance between you and the feeling. A Stoic is not emotionless. A Stoic is not controlled by emotions. The moment you can observe your reaction without becoming it, the power returns to you. Ask yourself, will acting from emotion protect my dignity or destroy it? If the action weakens your self-respect, then it is not worth taking. This is the hidden blessing inside ghosting. It gives you a moment to see how strong or fragile your emotional discipline truly is. It reveals whether you act from neediness or self-control, from desperation or clarity. As you resist the impulse to chase, you develop a deeper form of strength, one that lasts far beyond this situation. Every moment you hold back, you train a part of yourself that will protect you in future relationships, friendships, and conflicts. Emotional discipline is like a muscle. Every test makes you stronger. When you choose not to react emotionally, something remarkable happens. The pain of being ghosted slowly transforms into pride. You begin to respect yourself for staying calm, You admire your own restraint, and you realize that your dignity is far more valuable than any closure another person could have given you. Number 3, redirect your focus back to yourself. One of the biggest traps after being ghosted is obsessing over the person who disappeared. You replay conversations, analyze texts, and search for clues that might explain what happened. But the truth is simple. Your mind becomes attached to the idea of them, not the reality of them. And the more you focus on them, the more power you give away. Stoicism teaches the opposite. Reclaim that power by returning all your attention to yourself. Begin by asking, what does this experience reveal about me? Maybe you gave too much too quickly. Maybe you overlooked red flags. Maybe you depended on external validation more than you realized. This is not self-blame. This is self-awareness. Ghosting becomes harmful only when you refuse to learn from it. When you use it as a mirror instead of a wound, you grow. Redirect your energy into your life. Strengthen your routines. Work on your body, your goals, your discipline, your purpose. Everything you invest into yourself returns back multiplied. Everything you invest into someone who walked away returns empty. Stoicism is practical. Choose the investment that pays you, not the one that drains you. The moment you shift your focus inward, the emotional fog begins to disappear. Your mind becomes clearer. Your breathing becomes calmer. You remember who you were before their silence distracted you. You return to yourself, and this is the greatest recovery of all. Eventually, you realize something profound. The person who ghosted you temporarily took your attention, but they never had the power to take your value. Your identity, your confidence, your worth, these things were never up for negotiation. Redirecting your focus simply reminds you of what has always been true. Number 4, protect your dignity at all costs. Ghosting tests your dignity. It tempts you to lower your standards, chase someone who dismissed you, or beg for attention that should have been given freely. But Stoicism teaches that dignity is the one thing you must never give away. Not for love, not for validation, not for closure. When someone ghosts you, your dignity becomes your shield. Protecting your dignity means resisting the desire to send a final message that seeks reassurance. It means not posting something online just to attract their attention. It means refusing to play the emotional games that others fall into when they feel rejected. Instead of reacting outwardly, strengthen your inner posture. Stand tall in silence. Your silence becomes more powerful than any words you could have said. Dignity also means refusing to villainize the person who ghosted you. Do not insult them, complain about them, or gossip about them. Speaking badly about them might feel good for a moment, but it weakens your moral character. A Stoic maintains emotional discipline even toward those who behave poorly. They do not allow someone else's weakness to pull them out of alignment. Protecting dignity is also about your future self. When you look back at this moment years from now, what version of you will you be proud of? The one who begged, chased, or demanded answers? Or the one who stayed composed, calm, and self-respecting even in the face of emotional uncertainty? Your future self is watching. Make decisions that honor them. When you protect your dignity, you teach the world how to treat you. You make it clear that your value is not determined by who stays or leaves. And the right people, the ones capable of loyalty, honesty, and emotional maturity, will naturally be drawn to someone who carries themselves with this kind of strength. Number 5. Leave the door closed and move forward with wisdom. The Stoic response to being ghosted is simple. Leave the door closed. If someone did not value you enough to communicate, they do not deserve access to you later when they suddenly remember your worth. People often return when they realize you didn't chase them, but that return should never tempt you back into the same dynamic that once disrespected you. Moving forward means removing the emotional weight of the situation from your shoulders. You are not losing anything valuable. You are simply being freed from someone who did not have the strength to stay. There is a deep liberation in realizing that not everyone is meant to stay in your story, and the sooner they leave, the fewer chapters they waste. As you move forward, carry the lesson with you. Protect your heart without building walls around it. Stay open to connection, but never again allow someone's silence to disturb your inner peace. The pain you feel today is temporary. The strength you gain from mastering it will stay with you for life. Stoicism turns heartbreak into wisdom and confusion into clarity. Remember that people who disappear are teaching you something about themselves, not about you. They are teaching you what kind of energy you do not want to attract again. They are showing you the difference between someone who chooses you and someone who only entertains you. Walk away with your dignity intact and your standards higher than before. And finally, remind yourself of this truth. Being ghosted is not a sign that you are unworthy. It is a sign that someone was not capable of depth. You are not meant to shrink for people who cannot see your value. Move forward with calm confidence, knowing that someone who respects you will never communicate through silence. Number 6, don't take their disappearance as a reflection of your worth. When someone disappears without warning, your first instinct is to search for flaws in yourself. You wonder if you said something wrong, if you weren't interesting enough, or if you lacked something they were looking for. But this mindset is a trap. Stoicism teaches that another person's behavior is a reflection of them, never you. Their silence reveals their emotional capacity, not your value. Their inability to communicate says more about their courage than your worth. Self-blame only deepens the wound. It turns someone's immaturity into your burden. Instead, remind yourself that your character, your kindness, and your effort were not wasted. They simply landed on the wrong person. Not everyone has the emotional strength to handle genuine connection. Not everyone is capable of honesty. Some people run when things get real. This is not your failure. It is their limitation. Stop judging yourself through the lens of someone who could not handle who you are. You're not defined by the actions of someone who walked away. If a person does not value you, that does not make you less valuable. It simply means they were not the right match for your depth. You're not meant to convince someone to appreciate you. Appreciation comes naturally to those who see your worth. Instead of questioning your value, focus on rebuilding your internal narrative. Speak to yourself with the respect that someone else failed to give you. Remind yourself that being ghosted is not proof that you lack something. It is proof that you are offering something to someone who wasn't prepared to receive it. Your worth remains untouched by their decision. When you stop viewing their silence as a verdict on your value, the emotional pain begins to fade. You feel lighter. You stop chasing explanations. You understand that your worth is inherent, steady, and self-held. This is the Stoic truth. No external event, not even rejection or ghosting, can diminish the value of a mind that knows itself. Number 7, raise your standard for how people must show up. Being ghosted gives you an opportunity to adjust your standards. Many people accept poor communication because they're afraid of losing the relationship, but Stoicism encourages the opposite. Let poor communication be the reason you walk away. When someone disappears instead of speaking honestly, they show you they cannot meet the standard of maturity you require. And once you see this clearly, you must raise your expectations moving forward. Raising your standards means becoming very intentional about who you allow into your life. You stop giving access to people who are inconsistent, emotionally unstable, or unreliable. You prioritize those who are direct, transparent, and capable of adult communication. Ghosting becomes the filter that separates people who deserve a place in your world from those who don't. When you raise your standards, something shifts internally. You stop seeking attention from anyone who shows the slightest interest. You start valuing consistency over excitement, stability over charm, character over convenience. In Stoicism, you are encouraged to evaluate people through their actions, not their promises or potential. Ghosting gives you the data you need to make that evaluation clearly. Raising your standard does not make you cold. It makes you disciplined. You create emotional boundaries that protect your mind from unnecessary chaos. You allow fewer people in, But the ones who remain are strong, loyal, and emotionally responsible. And as your standards rise, the quality of your relationships rises with them. Eventually, you look back and feel grateful for the moment you were ghosted, because it was the event that pushed you to stop accepting the bare minimum. It forced you to demand honesty, effort, and presence. And when you raise your standards, you no longer tolerate people who vanish when life requires maturity. Number 8, don't let silence turn into self-destruction. The danger of being ghosted is not the silence itself. It's what your mind does with that silence. Left unchecked, your thoughts begin to wander towards self-doubt, fear, insecurity, and even obsession. Your imagination creates stories that hurt you more than the actual event. This is where Stoicism becomes essential. It teaches you how to stop your mind from attacking you. The Stoics believe that most suffering comes not from events, but from the stories we add to those events. When someone ghosts you, the fact is simple. They stop responding. Everything else, I wasn't good enough, I must have done something wrong, they found someone better, is fiction. Painful fiction created by an untrained mind. And you have the power to interrupt that cycle. When you feel your thoughts spiraling, bring them back to truth. Truth is stable. Truth is calming. Truth is neutral. Repeat. They stop communicating. I don't know why. I won't create reasons that hurt me. This kind of mental clarity is discipline. It stops emotional chaos from forming and strengthens your self-control. To prevent self-destruction, reconnect with reality through action. Get out of your head by grounding yourself in your body. Exercise, walk, breathe, journal, meditate. Remind yourself that your life exists outside of this moment, and your identity exists outside of this person. Movement clears mental noise and breaks emotional loops. With time, you realize you never needed answers from them. You only needed answers from yourself. You needed to regain control over your mind, not over their actions. When you stop letting silence destroy you, you unlock a level of inner strength that no external event can shake. Number 9, replace expectation with detachment. One reason ghosting hurts so deeply is because it shatters expectations. You expected communication. You expected reciprocation. You expected honesty. And when those expectations collapse, your emotions collapse with them. Stoicism teaches a powerful antidote. Detach from outcomes you cannot control. Detachment is not indifference. It is emotional independence. It means you care, you give effort, you show up, but you're not owned by someone else's choices. When you detach from outcomes, you stop expecting people to behave perfectly. You stop assuming they will show up the way you show up. You stop believing that connection guarantees consistency. Detachment allows you to love and trust without losing yourself. It keeps your emotional center steady even when other people are unpredictable. When someone ghosts you, detachment prevents your heart from collapsing under the weight of disappointment. You see their behavior clearly without letting it define your emotional state. When you detach, you gain a calm confidence. You stop chasing what collapses. You stop breaking yourself trying to understand another person's decisions. Instead, you focus on what remains within your control. Your words, your actions, your responses, your character. This is where Stoic peace is found. Eventually, you learn that emotional detachment is not about pushing people away. It's about protecting the peace within you. It allows you to connect without clinging, give without losing yourself, and walk away without falling apart. When you master this, ghosting becomes nothing more than a temporary disruption, not a personal destruction. Number 10, choose to walk away with wisdom, not wounds. Every painful experience offers two paths. One leads to bitterness, and the other leads to wisdom. Being ghosted can easily push you toward resentment, distrust, and emotional walls. But the Stoic path invites you to choose the opposite, to walk away wiser, more aware, and more grounded in self-respect. Walking away with wisdom means reflecting, not ruminating. You look at the situation objectively and ask, what did this teach me about people? What did this teach me about myself? What will I do differently next time? These questions transform emotional pain into learning. They turn confusion into strength. When you walk away with wisdom, you do not close your heart. You simply refine it. You become better at identifying red flags early. You recognize patterns of inconsistency faster. You develop an instinct for who deserves your energy and who doesn't. Your standards rise naturally because your awareness rises. You also become more compassionate toward yourself. You stop punishing yourself for caring. You stop regretting your effort. You stop blaming yourself for someone else's inability to show up. Instead, you thank yourself for trying, and you allow yourself to move forward without shame or self-judgment. In the end, choosing wisdom over wounds is the greatest Stoic victory. It means you refuse to let someone's silence echo inside your heart longer than necessary. You take the lesson, protect your dignity, and continue your life with calm strength. And when the right person arrives, you will meet them not from insecurity, but from clarity and self-respect.